Praise the Lord and welcome to Sunday Morning Christian Education. My name is Teraie Deloach. I attend Greater Bethlehem Temple Apostolic Church located on 4781 Hamilton Avenue in Cincinnati, Ohio, where Bishop James Chapman is the pastor and our First Lady is Lady Robin Chapman, and where there is a God in Bethlehem and Jesus is his name. Today's lesson is titled Learning Contentment, and it comes from the book of Philippians chapter 4 verses 4 through 18, and the golden text reads, "Rejoice in the Lord always." And again I say rejoice, and that's Philippians 4 and 4. Google defines contentment as a state of happiness and satisfaction. Google says in the Bible, contentment is acceptance of things as they are, as the wise and loving providence of a God who knows what is good for us, who so love us as always to seek our good. It says Christian contentment means that my satisfaction is independent of my circumstances. Spiritual contentment is a settled spirit, a quiet confidence that God is always at work for good. In the golden text, Paul urges the Philippian believers to rejoice in the Lord. He even repeated the command a second time for emphasis. Christians should always rejoice, even when confronted with the daily problems of life. The believer does not have to resort to worry, but can have a joyful heart. Rejoicing and being happy are not synonymous. Not every circumstance that comes into the life of a believer will make him happy, but he can rejoice in the Lord always, regardless of problems or tragedies. A rejoicing heart is capable of resisting the natural sinful response of bitterness, and instead can display moderation or sweet reasonableness. In our lesson it says Paul gave us a good reason to have an attitude of rejoicing that results in treating others with gentleness. The Lord is near. We do not know God's timing, but we know the Lord's return cannot be far away. Believers are to live expecting God's return at any moment. One of the best ways to prepare for the Lord's imminent return is to practice rejoicing. Paul gave us 7 exercises in rejoicing. Number 1, he says, give your worries over to the Lord. Constant stress harms you physically and spiritually. God's remedy is prayer. Turn it over to the Lord and he'll work it out. Number 2, be careful what you put in your mind. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. Focus on materials that portrays godly character. Focus on noble and uplifting ideals rather than cruel or mocking ones. Things that are just or righteous deserve our attention. The evils of sinful people should not fascinate us. Instead, we should turn away from those to look at right actions. Things that are lovely. That's what promotes peace rather than conflict. Try to dwell on the best in people and on the things that make them special to us rather than on the things that would bring us into conflict. Things that are of good report. Christians should be eager to hear about and think about the positive reports that build others up, not about the negative gossip that tears others down. Paul stated, whatever is virtuous and deserving of praise is worthy of the believer's time and attention. When a believer's mind is filled with those good things, he will rejoice in the God who made them possible. Okay, the third thing. Not surprisingly, but a mind fixed on godly things lead to godly actions. Paul urged the Philippians to imitate him as he imitated Christ. This could result in the blessings of God's peace. The peace will be in their hearts, as there will be no habitual sin separating them from God. The fourth thing is to openly admit the ways in which other people have helped you. Some people refuse to admit that any others have had a part in their work, perhaps fearing that they would share in the credit. Paul gave credit not only for what they did, but also what they would have done if they had the opportunity. Giving others esteem for the things that they do allow us to rejoice in heart is what is accomplished. Number 5. Paul was content with relying on the strength of Christ to sustain and direct him. He learned contentment regardless of circumstances. He learned contentment regardless of his circumstances. His experience as a servant of God put him places where he had a lot of material things and into other situations where they had very little. Where he had very little. Let's do that one over. He learned contentment regardless of his circumstances. His experience as a servant of God put him in places where he had a lot of material things and into other situations where he had very little. Number 6. Meet the needs of others. This causes God's people to rejoice among those who gave and those who received. The Philippians were the ones who helped Paul in the early days of his ministry. In turn, Paul had given them preaching the gospel and teaching them spiritual truths. Number 7. They gave him gifts and met his needs, and he expressed thankfulness for all they had done. He described their gifts as a sacrifice to God and pictured their generosity as a sweet fragrance pleasing the Father. I have a quote from Cheryl R. Harvin. She states, "The basic difference between the person who rejoices and the one who does not is where the person's focus lies. The person with his eyes on himself finds little to rejoice about. The person with his focus on God, however, experiences true joy." Romans 8:5 says, "For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit." Let spirit meet spirit. I hope I have put something on your mind. Until next time, God bless.